Welcome, everyone. This is my first time doing anything like this, so hopefully I don't fuck it up. So I've been working in different startups for 6 years, mostly in bootstrapped startups, which is a fancy way of saying we don't have any marketing budget. It's been really interesting, and a few months ago, I fulfilled one of my long-time dreams of becoming a startup founder. So now I'm one of the 3 founders of Dashboard. Dashboard is a platform for serverless monitoring and debugging. And if you don't know what serverless is, you should definitely look it up. It's a cloud computing model that has huge business benefits. And that's why people are saying that it's going to be the next big thing after blockchain. So now I got your attention, right, with the blockchain? So with serverless, there are lots of benefits, but a tiny bit of problem. There aren't too many monitoring debugging tools, and Dashboard is solving that problem. So check out Dashboard. That's my plug. But enough about me and Dashboard. We have 3 amazing speakers today who are all going to talk about what did not work in 2017, because we're so sick of the success stories, right? So join me on the stage, Laurence, Eli, and Dirk. And the first one to present is Laurence. She's a superwoman. Her resume is simply so impressive. So the stage is yours.
OK. So yeah, you see the screen. Hello, everyone. Very pleased to be here. As you can hear, I'm French. I'm based in London, and I work for an Estonian company. So it's a pretty international mix. So my name is Laurence Bret-Stern, and I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Pipedrive. I'm going to give you a few words about Pipedrive, not to be like salesy nor anything else, but just to give you a piece of context, because my presentation is a little bit technical. So for those who don't know, Pipedrive is a very successful startup that started here in Estonia in 2010 and has grown to a global company serving over 75,000 customers in the world. We sell a sales management solution that was developed by sales for sales. And our business model is trial to paid, subscription-based. What it means is that you sign up with your email. You don't have to put any credit card. And after 2 weeks, you can choose to go either for a monthly or a yearly subscription. So I'm going to explain what I did in 2017. And a caveat is that I joined Pipedrive in August. So this is what I learned in the 4 last months of 2017, not the entire year. But, I made a few mistakes. So I had the opportunity to learn in those 4 months. So my role is to scale efficiently. And what does it mean, scaling efficiently? It means that you have to increase the bottom line, so the number of paid customers, but you also have to increase you need to increase, the top line, the number of customers, but you have to increase the bottom line even faster. This is scaling efficiently. So the bottom line in our case is the number of people who are going to sign up for our free trial. And when you're a marketer, you say, OK, those are like leads or signups. And so if you want to scale, you say, OK, I'm going to use the different marketing tactics. In a dream world, you would scale only through free traffic, organic traffic. And we've done a lot of that over the years. We've been very frugal, but you also need a little bit of paid marketing. And in our world, paid marketing is pay-per-click, so it's search, it's directories, but it's also display and social media. And a lot of people think that scaling paid marketing is really about optimizing your cost per lead or your cost per sign-up. And so if you have a curve like that, where you are increasing your number of leads and you manage to bring your cost per sign-up down, you feel like, I must be scaling efficiently. Well, you can be mistaken. Because what matters is also the conversion rate. And if your conversion rate goes down as you scale your spending and your volume, it means that your actual cost of acquisition per customer, your bottom line, is going to go down or go up. And so like the cost per acquisition go up, your bottom line go down. And so like you're not really scaling efficiently. Unless you manage to increase the value per customer, and that's the lifetime value. So the lifetime value is the value that a customer is going to bring the time they stay with you. And it depends, obviously, on a number of variables. It depends on, the amount of subscription they are going to pay you on a monthly or yearly basis. But it also depends a lot on the churn. If you manage to increase, this lifetime value, again, by increasing either the revenue or diminishing the churn, it means that you're going to have more leeway to spend on your marketing budget. And then, in that case, you can scale efficiently. So you probably guess what was my mistake in 2017. We started to spend more money, to acquire more volume of sign-up, more volume of leads. And we were trumped by the fact that we did a great work with optimizing the cost per sign-up, the cost per lead. But actually, we didn't pay enough attention at our conversion rates. That started to deteriorate, and that basically wiped out all the optimization we had at the top of the funnel. So there are a number of rules that you can apply, in the SaaS world to make sure that you stay in the green zone. So I mentioned on numbers. So, some people are going to look at the ratio between lifetime value and cost of acquisition per customer. And in our type of business, subscription-based with a pretty small amount of revenue per customer but high volume, the good ratio is at least five times. Like your cost of acquisition should be 5 times smaller than your LTV. Another way to look at it is a payback period. So you're going to look at a cohort of customers joining your company, and you're going to look at how much money they bring, and you need to make sure that their cost of acquisition, their marginal cost of acquisition, is covered in less than a year, ideally around 10 months. Of course, if you are in an enterprise business, those numbers are going to be different. You could enterprise, providers usually look at a payback over a year. But in our case, we need to stay within a year. And there is another number that VCs, use a lot. They call it the magic number, and it's basically comparing the amount of money you spent on marketing and sales in the quarter, the previous quarter, to the increase of revenue it brought in the next quarter. And usually, what you say is, okay, I'm looking, for instance, at how much marketing and sales dollars I spent in the quarter in Q4 2017, and I multiply this by 4, and that no, sorry, let's do it again. That's where my math, you said that we could fuck it up. I just fuck it up. So you take the marketing spending in Q4. Let's say you spent, let's be generous, 1 million in Q4. And then you look at how much growth it brought you in Q1. And it needs to be, and you multiply this growth by 4 to have the yearly growth. And the ratio needs to be superior to 75%. And that means that it's actually equivalent to a payback period under a year. So you can play with those ratios, those numbers, and adjust your marketing spending and cap your marketing spending. The problem is that usually, most of the marketing team or even the media agency don't use this kind of model. If you work with a media agency, they are going to look at the spend, and they are going to essentially focus on the cost per lead or the cost per sign-up, so the top line. And they're going to have this impression that if they manage to bring this cost per sign-up down, which is very hard, by the way, in our world, because frankly, Google, Facebook, have now a monopoly, in the advertising business, and costs have incredibly increased in 2017. So when you manage to decrease your average cost per sign-up, you're like, yeah, I did something incredible. But actually, you may be in the red zone already if your conversion rate is declining. So just to finish on this, how did we understand our mistake? How did we uncover this mistake? We actually look at what are the growth driver, and we break it down. And we broke it down in this is a McKinsey trick. It's called MISI. It means mutually exclusive, commonly exhaustive. So you take an issue, you take a problem, and you try to break it down in any in single components. And so we look at, okay, what does it mean to be efficient, as a marketer in the SaaS world? Well, you basically have two levers. You have your lifetime value and you have your CAC. And then if I look at the CAC, for instance, my CAC, it's based on my cost per leads and my conversion rate. My cost per leads is going to be based on my mix, like how much I do get from paid marketing, how much I do get from organic. And you look at those levers. On the other hand, the lifetime value is based on the revenue you're going to extract per customer, so your pricing, for instance, your price plans. And it's going to be based on the churn, and it's also going to be based on the volume you can get from customers. And so we started to look at this, and we realized that actually some levers are easier to move than others. For instance, we said, okay, if we increase the price a little, actually we could really have a meaningful impact on the lifetime value. Even more so with churn. If you reduce your churn by 2, you multiply your LTV by 2. So, I mean, it's really, really, really impactful. We're actually decreasing the cost per leads in a very competitive paid marketing world dominated by Google and Facebook is really challenging. So based on that, we change the tactics and we say, okay, we're going to achieve a more balanced mix between volume and value. So we're still going to work on acquiring a lot of customers because we are an hyper-growing company and we're aiming at a very high growth rate. But we're also going to look at the value. And so last year we were super focused on volume, and so we had removed all the entry barriers to our subscription. So we were really promoting the low entry offer, our silver offer, because it was very cheap. And we brought a lot of volume, but we also brought a lot of very, very small companies that were churning more. So it really hurt our lifetime value. And so in January, we relaunched our offering, and we put our gold offer, which is the mid-market offer, by default, and we increased the price of silver a little. And that worked out pretty well. So those are the preliminary results after Q1. So we hit our targets of growth in Q1, and we even passed our growth target in Q1. We really had a far larger adoption of our gold plan, which actually doubled, and now we have half of our customers coming to this plan. And we also materially increased the revenue per customers and decreased the churn, because again, we got more valuable customers that churn less. So it's proven to be effective, and this is how you learn from your mistakes.
Oops. I have one quick question. How quickly did you see the results?
So those results, from Q1, it was pretty immediate. Mm-hmm. The learning from our mistakes took time.
Okay.
Because again, I call it also the vanity metrics. Sometimes you focus on a KPI and you think, okay, I'm super successful because this KPI, is green. But maybe you made a mistake, and that's the mistake we made. We said, okay, again, because there is so much pressure in the paid marketing world around the cost per sign up. We really focused on this one, and it's a lot of effort to optimize your CPS. It's not something easy, but we lost sight of what mattered, and we didn't pay too much attention to the conversion rates. We were okay, they're diminishing a little, but it's okay, and actually it was not okay.
Have you also seen seasonality in SaaS business?
Oh yes, there is a lot of seasonality. So in our world, a lot of people make decisions about their software or their tool at the beginning of the year. So Q1 is very important, and it may have played out. That's a fact. What we saw, there is also a seasonality in paid marketing, and Q4 2017 has been considered as probably the worst quarter for companies who invest in Google and Facebook. We saw a very big increase of Facebook prices, and that has been seen across the board. And we've seen also a lot of activity with Google around brand search. So it's probably the case for a number of companies. This is also the tribute you have to pay when you're pretty successful. We saw an increasing number of competitors starting to buy our names on Google, and that multiply our costs for brand search by 5, just in 1 quarter. So yeah, that's the world we live in.
Okay, we can discuss it a bit later as well. Next up is Eli. He's the SEO master. I'm really excited to learn from him.
So like Annika said, she's had a first today. Today is her first time moderating a panel, and I'm having a first today too. This is my first time speaking in front of an audience, having slept for 2 hours in the last 36 hours. And thank you to Swiss Airlines for that. So I need to get some energy from all of you. So can everyone please stand up? The people in the back not without seats, promise not to steal your seats. Okay. If you have not conducted a Google search ever on your phone, please sit down. All right, we're good. If you have not conducted a Google search before now, today, please sit down. We got someone. DuckDuckGo is Google. All right, and one more. If you have not met someone and Googled them after meeting them, sit down. Starting with Google. We've got 4 people who are not creepy or not admitting to creepy. Okay. Now, one last thing before I let you all sit down, which is sometimes people have not done a voice search on their phone in the past. So we're all going to do a voice search right now. So everyone knows that the way you do an Android search is with OK Google, and the way you do an Apple search is with Hey Siri. So let's go. When I say 3, we're going to do OK Google, Hey Siri. 1, 2, 3. OK Google, Hey Siri. All right, you've done it. Now you can sit down. So I've been doing SEO for more than a decade, but I have a very varied career. For about 2 years in the middle of the last 12 years, I was in Asia. And this is my favorite picture I've ever taken of myself. This is next to a toilet. And it is the mascot of a company in Indonesia called Kaskus. And Kaskus sounds like toilet in Indonesian. So Kaskus is like Quora and Reddit got married. So it's the largest internet site in Indonesia, and their mascot is a toilet. So if you visit them, you take a picture of a toilet and you sign it. Now, the reason I've had this really, really varied career, which is very, very deep in SEO, very deep in technical SEO, my particular expertise is in large sites with many, many problems and millions of visits, fixing them, creating strategy, consulting with companies, and obviously working for SurveyMonkey the last 6 years. So the reason I ended up in Asia was because I made a mistake. I believed the hype. So before I moved to Asia, I believed that SEO was dead and SEO was dying, and I needed to change my career and get new experiences. So I changed everything about what I was doing, and I moved to Asia to learn about different areas of marketing, to learn about a different region, to go into something completely new, because I thought what I'd spent a decade doing was dead and dying. And I had very good reason for that. So social media. Everyone talked about how everyone is using social media. Social media is rising. You can find all the conversations you need to on social media. It's pushed at you. You don't need to search anymore. I believe that. 2016, I'm from America. We had an election. No one was talking about who was ranking the highest on Google. They were talking about who was doing the best on social media. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Russia. But no one was talking about who was ranking the best. It was all about social media. So again, I believe that hype. Ad spend. So we heard a little bit of talk about ad spend before. Ad spend continues to climb, and people are spending more and more money. So as they spend money in digital advertising, they're spending less on organic marketing. And the platform is transitioning. So we all just did a voice search for the first time. Congratulations to those of you that have done it the first time. But there are different devices that people are using for search. It's not all about 10 blue links, 7 blue links. Organic is changing. Again, I believe that. I believe that something I'd spent my entire career on doing was no longer going to matter in the future as this platform transitioned. But what changed for me in 2017, and this really isn't about what I failed at in 2017, it's really about what I failed at before and learned in 2017. So I came back from Singapore, where I was living for 2 years, and I came back to SurveyMonkey. I was responsible for international marketing, and the SEO that I'd built up for years started to decay, because the people that were doing SEO were not doing the SEO the way I'd done it. They did SEO by just setting and forgetting, which is something you can't do with SEO. SEO is a proactive channel. It's a marketing channel like any other. It's not, we've done SEO, we've SEO'd it, and we're good. And that's what was happening. So I came back into SEO, I rebuilt our strategies, and here's what I learned. So advertising became a lot more expensive. Brand CPCs are going up, so people are defending their own brands. The brand CPC that they were already paying for is now doubling. Why? Because there's competition. Why? Because Google wants to make more money. So if companies were dumping all this money into paid marketing, they're getting less for it. They're on search, but they're spending more and getting less. So where do they start looking? Organic. And then there's been all this talk about social. So as Facebook tweaks their algorithm, organic social becomes a lot harder to get to. As again, Facebook tweaks their paid algorithm, paid social becomes a lot hard to get to. So again, they're spending more money, getting less. And where are they thinking? Again, people are thinking about organic. What is a channel that they have not tapped into that can still have a lot of traffic and still drive a lot of revenue? Here's a big one. I love when people talk about how mobile is the new platform. But there's really only 24 hours in a day. So I know that for 8 hours a day, I'm on my computer. I'm on my phone all the other hours that I'm not awake. So mobile is definitely rising. Mobile is with us as long as we're awake, but it does not take away the 8 hours a day that we're on our computers, conducting searches, doing things on Google. So mobile may be rising, people may be doing more picture search, more voice search, but that doesn't take away the 8 hours a day that we're still doing traditional organic search. And here's the interesting thing. SEO is not dying. Search is still growing. There are 40,000 searches conducted per second. I know that when I was stranded in Zurich and then in Stockholm, I was Googling. I wasn't going on to Facebook saying, how do I get to Tallinn? How do I find a hotel to stay in? How do I get compensation from an airline? That's all on Google. You can't go on Twitter and find someone to go help you because they weren't helping me in person. Why would they help me on Twitter? Google is how you find those answers. And Google is where we are all going when we're looking for things. I'm in the process of running the survey about how many searches people are running per day and what the demographics are. But that is continuing to grow. And here's the most interesting part about this. The click-through rate on ads is only 3.4%. So I didn't sleep a lot, but I can tell you that there's a lot more searches being done and people are clicking organic. So you're spending all that money and all that traffic, or nearly all that traffic, is going into the organic listings. Search is far from dead. And one more thing that Google just released, which is that 15% of all queries are still brand new to them. So it's not that they're ranking queries and they know where someone should rank. 15% of all queries they've never, ever seen before. And if you can see this, this is an interesting search I did last week. I saw a bug on my house, and I didn't know what it was called. So I Googled insect long wings and long neck. And Google decided that what I meant was snakefly. So we're Googling longer things. And look, they bold it. They give me the Wikipedia. So Google's discovering what we're looking for. They're using this artificial intelligence, taking all these brand new queries we've done and giving us back old results. So Search is still growing. We haven't capped out. We have not saturated the search market. So now I'm going to walk through the steps on how we can do this new SEO in this new world and how you can succeed. Now, if anybody here believes that SEO is dead, that's great. Your competitors probably don't believe that. So someone is going to win those results. 40,000 searches per second, 2 trillion searches per year. People are searching, people are clicking. If it's not to your site, it's to someone else's. Google's not going to return no results and say, sorry, go try something else. Go on Facebook. So here's the big one. I have the benefit of working for a brand that many people are aware of. But the future does belong to brands. And it's not that you have to become the big McDonald's or the Mercedes. You can become a brand for what you're known for, whatever that is. If people are searching your brand name, you are a brand. And Google likes giving search results to brands because people like brands. When Mercedes got penalized from Google, they were penalized for 3 days because when people search Mercedes, Google's afraid that if they don't find Mercedes, they're going to say Google's broken. They're not going to say Mercedes is broken. So Google loves brands. If you can become the brand for what you do, whatever it is, if you're selling drinks or you're making something or running events, you become the brand. Get people searching for your brand name. Establish the content within that brand. Scaling SEO is where everyone is going. And here are examples of companies I see doing an amazing job of scaling. Uber, they do one thing very, very well, or they try to do many things, but they really do one thing very, very well, which is getting people into cars and taking them where they're going. But they're also trying to build out this entire destination website by scaling. How can they get all these people coming to Uber's website? By having results for attractions, results for where to eat. So they're scaling. So you can be everywhere. They're building that brand. Another interesting one is WebMD. Everything you search for, every disease you're not going to search for that people are looking over your shoulder when you're doing, WebMD is there. They're building this big scaled out SEO structure. So whatever space you're in, build out everything possible. Don't just build your 10 pages. So user intent. So people throw up their hands and they say, well, Google's using AI, so I can't rank. It's just not possible for me to be there because Google's trying to figure out what people are searching for. And here are 2 great examples where companies did not, or the top ones, the government, did not throw up their hands. When someone searches, will it rain today, and you can all try this on your phones now that you know how to do voice search. When you search, will it rain today, you're really doing a search for weather. But the Met Office in the UK actually built a page for will it rain today. So when you Google, will it rain today, guess who ranks? So whatever those high-level queries are, go into the user intent. You can create content for it. Domino's has done the same thing. People search for pizza near me, so they built a page for pizza near me. So whatever those queries are, yes, queries are becoming longer. People are becoming more specific. Create content for those more specific queries. And you can win, and your competitors won't. So gone are the days where you can create lots of content. You can get someone in the Philippines, in India, or anywhere that has an economy where you can pay for labor cheaper than your own economy, where you can write out 100 words on a topic and call that SEO. People are not writing SEO and expecting to rank. What you need to rank on is content that's deep and authoritative, thousands and thousands of words. That's how you're becoming that brand. So if there's something you absolutely want to rank on, build lots and lots of words around it. If you've ever received one of these emails where someone tells you that they can get you links in all the authoritative sites and it'll only cost you $40 and you're going to get links from great websites, that doesn't work anymore because they send those emails to Google too. Secret's out. The real way to do this and to build those links is to become that influencer yourself. So a couple of years ago, right when I started thinking SEO is dead, instead of trying to get links on Huffington Post, I started writing for Huffington Post. All the places that you want to get links from, become a contributor to those sites. There is no shortcut. So if you're in the event space, write on the Chamber of Commerce websites. If you're in the food space, write articles on food sites. Don't ask other people to give links to you because everyone's asking to give links to you, to give links to them. Go for what's harder and more valuable. Contribute on your own. Search is changing. It's not just about content anymore. You have to use markup. So rich snippets and schema.org. So if you haven't seen any of these things before, You can search on Yandex, Google, or wherever you want to search. But this is, not all results are going to be content. So if you're selling tickets, make sure you mark up your content with tickets and ticket dates and event dates and all the other things, so you're going to rank, and this is what Google will show. If you have recipes, make sure you're informing Google that it is a recipe, because when people are searching recipes, they don't want to read through all the steps and try to figure out it's a recipe. Give over those steps to Google, so Google can tell users what the recipe is. So mobile is here, right? Still, we have 8 hours a day we're on the desktop, but there's another 8 hours a day where people are on mobile. When you're creating content, if your audience is mobile, make sure you're creating content for that mobile audience. And here's some interesting screenshots. So when you're looking on these kinds of things, there's not a lot of organic search. You need to be number one. You need to be the most authoritative person in your space. So if your platform is mobile, if your users are mobile, create content that you know will be number one, and create content that you know will look good and work well on mobile. And finally, this is a tip for everyone here, go broad. Here are opportunities for everyone here to rank. So I searched this, weather in Tallinn. No one was ranking on that result that is not a weather site. So if you're an attraction site, you can rank on weather in Tallinn. You're getting that deep search. People are searching weather in Tallinn. If they're visitors, they want to know weather in Tallinn because they want to do things. Dress sizing. Here's another example. The site that is giving results for dress sizing does not sell dresses. They only sell sizes. So they're missing out on what they should be doing. If you're selling clothes, add that content. Provide the value to the users. If someone wants the sizes for dresses, they want to buy something. They want to measure something. They want to wear. IPX7, so this is the search for waterproofing and water resistance. You're just getting Wikipedia results. If you're selling phones, you can define the glossary for all the terms people may be looking for. And chocolate health, another good example. The site that defines it does not sell chocolate. So if you're in the food space, you can give health tips. So just go broad. Whatever you're doing, it does not just have to be the products you're selling. That's it for me. Thank you very much. You can Google me, or you can just email me.
I have a really quick question. Who
Sure.
was the person convincing you that SEO is dead?
I read too much.
Okay. And next up, be prepared to be really excited because Dirk works with AI.
Yeah, welcome from my side. Yeah, you're not on the wrong track. So I think the good news, I will not talk too much about AI. I will actually share a bit what we do as a company. So I'm a co-founder of a company called DAIN Studios. Actually, DAIN stands, as you can see, for AI and Inside. What I will share in the next couple of minutes, it's actually our learning for ourselves, our company, in terms of what we offer, how we work with our clients. But actually, of course, it's also reflected what our clients experienced when actually kind of exploring the area of marketing automation. We're a quite young company. We have a kind of broad view in terms of industries. There are around 14 different countries we work with. So don't count the numbers of people because it's not correct anymore, but we need to catch up there. I think there's a lot of discussion about disruption. There's a lot of buzz around that. So I think every day, if you go into the media, you will see any of those words: personalization. If you talk to client, of course, everybody talks about data needs to be personalized, it needs to be real time, and so on. So as such, there's a lot of awareness, and as consequence, there's a lot of buzz about technology related to those buzzwords. And I think what you can see here is kind of the explosion of this kind of marketing tech landscape. So a lot of discussion about technology, more things to think of, and people start to get lost. So I think there's the magic quadrant. It's updated kind of on a regular basis. There's kind of all kind of for marketing automation. There's for CRM platforms, for Salesforce, and so on. But again, it's about technology. It's changed. Companies are happy if they are ranking up. Companies are happy if there are challenges, and so on. But we still talk about tech. And even more, and I think that's now related to the other stream. Of course, now since the last as you can see, 2016, but especially 2017, you can see actually data is dead. It was very cool before, but now AI is the cool thing. And again, it is about technology. But what really has changed is this. It is about omnichannel. I think companies still discuss a lot about it's the funnel, you need to optimize the funnel, but the reality is how kind of consumer interact with a brand, with an offering. It's very complicated. It goes in all directions. It's actually up to the user to decide when and where information is gathered. I think you heard it just before. People search for content. How people search for content. They get more sophisticated there. So you are not in control of the funnel. Even you believe, and there's a lot of effort spent on that one. So the challenge is a different one. And I think even the bigger thing is it has completely changed the way how you need to operate it. So the old model was you define a product, you define when you launch it, you define the channels, you roll it out to sell it. That's not working anymore. I think this is the classical product world. But now, and I think you also heard it before, you really need to think smartly about how do you reach your target audience in the most cost-effective way. So you need to really think smartly, and that means the whole process has changed dramatically. I think for us, for example, when talking with companies, one alarming signal is always if they talk about their marketing calendar. If they talk about, we plan for the next product to do a campaign here and there. That's of course right if you launch a product, but it's of course not related to the a relationship what you do with the consumer, because the consumer might not be ready for your product and Eastern because you believe it's an Easter product. It might be a different time, a different channel than you anticipate. And that means it gets far more complicated. And then if you look into this picture, and that's of course a super simplified one, talking about omnichannel. So now a lot of emphasis goes into this recommendation engine. So as said before, a lot of companies came to us and said, what kind of platform should we buy? Should we buy Salesforce? Should we license Adobe? We use this one? Is that the best? And so forth. But actually, the problem we experienced and the challenge a lot of companies we worked with experienced last year hasn't had anything to do with the recommendation engine, with the platform. The challenge was the data, so understanding the user behavior. The challenge was the content, and the challenge was to build that in an iterative fashion where you constantly learn how to improve. So building a systematic feedback loop. So as you can see, the recommendation engine is not marked here, because one of the learnings we had with people, with some of our clients, for example, was that they said, we have a lot of data. We are capturing all our websites. We have Google Analytics, which is of course great. But the idea was also to combine it with your CRM. And then it turned out, it was Google Analytics free, but it doesn't allow you, for example, to combine all the actions and reactions people are doing. So that means at the end, the connection was you send an email, and you can see, of course, the opening of the email. You can see if you connected properly with the reaction on your own channels, but you're missing out all other reactions of your user, and that means also you're missing out the opportunity to get into a dialogue with them. And that's, of course, I think the ultimate challenge or an ultimate opportunity you want to leverage is that you are getting into a dialogue with your customers, because that means there's a continuation. That also means your costs go down because your dialogue gets also, in terms of more meaningful, more converting better. And of course, less interaction also means your way to optimize, you segment your clients, your customer in the consumer space is more challenging. But even more critical, what we have seen is the complete underestimation of that you also need to have content in scale. If you, of course, have one email you send out, you need one package of content. But if you have 100 segments, 500 segments, you also need to be able to generate content for relevant content for 500 segments. If you have 1,000 segments, of course, you also need to scale up the point is you will realize very quickly, and that has been kind of one of the learnings for many of the companies, and one of their major challenges, that you also need to be able to kind of manage your content in a completely different way than you have done before. It needs to be in scale, it needs to be kind of tagged in the right way that you can really automate and kind of scale in that sense. And that means, and that's I think one of the next kind of learnings, is that it is a combination of different skills in your organization. So it's not like there's an IT department who takes care about the platform, there's the business side who kind of sets the targets, there's maybe the marketeers kind of thinking about the content and driving the campaign. You need to see it you need to do that in a cross-functional team, and that has implications on the way of working, it has implications on organizations, because if you really truly want to go into this consumer centricity, and I think this is one of the biggest kind of, you could say, learnings in that sense, is you completely need to rethink your organization. And of course, the challenge is kind of how do you get this started? And our approach here is first of all, you need to think from the outside in. You need to think about the customer journey. The gray picture is a classical situation of many companies that there's a lot of discontinuation points and you have difficulties to get them together. It's quite often also reflected to your organization. So quite often we can actually redraw the organization of a company by looking into their data architecture. So you need to kind of create that vision. But then I think the main thing is the three elements. It's kind of leadership, governance, and an incentive. Leadership means you need to kind of, this vision needs to be carried on with the whole organization. It's important that there's a set, kind of there's a target, and I think even more important, it's not like, yeah, here is our strategy, kind of live with it and kind of implementing it. It also means leadership is a continuational kind of element. And it also means leadership in terms of content, in terms of vision. It's a thought leadership, not just kind of from an organizational perspective. Governance is important because, as you have seen with the picture before, if you are kind of an established company, you will have legacy, which you need to overcome, so there are trade-offs to be done, and you need to work on them holistically, because otherwise you will, again, sub-optimize. And there need to be an incentive for everybody involved into that one, otherwise it will not work. And that means you need to think about holistically, that means you need to think about 360 about your consumer. That might not be the starting point, but I think that needs to be your ambition level, because that's the only way how you can kind of create a dialogue. And what we have seen to really make that kind of also impactful, you need to think very wisely about what is your key KPI. And I think for many companies, and I think that is my strong recommendation, if you want to be truly consumer-centric, there's only one KPI you should really think of, it's an active user. The definition might be a bit different for company to company, but I think this is your proxy for your future business. And that's also what you see with successful companies in the digital space. They look into this number, and starting with this number, you cascade it down into the journey. You cascade it down into sub-KPIs. You can go kind of along the journey. You kind of can further detail it. It doesn't mean you need to come up now with 500 KPIs. It can be a very small number you start with. You will learn in that journey that there's more to come, because you will learn that there is additional information you would kind of benefit from. And it also provides you the systematic, which is highly critical in identifying the discontinuation points. Because assuming you have a vision, assuming you have a strong leadership, you will be very active. But where do you focus on? So there's a lot of open points. So which one do you start first? Which is the most impactful? So it's very easy to kind of get very active, but not necessarily kind of very effective. And therefore, the KPIs is a kind of strong way to keep you kind of systematic on your journey. Of course, kind of implying that you're also honest to yourself. So some of the KPIs might not look that kind of rosy in the beginning, but that's kind of at least a start, and you can kind of look into that number. That's maybe also one point to highlight related to the active user. As such, it doesn't matter what is your starting number. Take that as a kind of a reference point and work against it. That's much more important than if it's 5 million, 10 million, 200,000. It doesn't matter. And then, and I think this is where we also kind of see a lot of emphasis need to be kind of built, is if you take all the slides before, it also requires a change of kind of, not only a change of mindset, a change of culture, but it also requires that that you need to increase skills. And of course, now coming from a data side, it's not only meaning that kind of hiring a couple of data scientists or the data engineers and so on. It also requires that you kind of increase the knowledge of your marketeers, because also they need to be data interested, data literate in that sense to drive that forward. As you can see, there's different industries where it might be a bit differently, but I think the bottom line is kind of the first thing what you need to kind of inject into your marketeers is curiosity about the data, what's happening. That's the starting point. The rest will come by itself. And then you can think about the quadrants. Then you can think about the technology, what fits the best to you. But then also the next one is do it step by step, because as said before, technology is something you can license. Technology is something kind of you can roll out in different speed, but don't underestimate the kind of the effort it will take to change the organization, change the people, change the motivation of the people. And that's more like the driving force here. It's less about what it will take to implement the technology. In all our projects so far, we have seen is that the technology at the end will not be the limiting factor to roll it out. It might not be the best solution what you will start with, but it will be kind of good enough to roll it out. The limiting factor is that you're ready on the marketing side, that you're ready on the content side, and you have the curiosity injected into your organization to drive that forward. And that's something which you should do step by step, because I think human behavior is usually kind of something which moves slower than maybe technology. So if I would like to sum it up, or I will sum it up for myself, for me the 2017 recap is, yeah, don't get kind of distracted by technology. I'm also kind of very curious about technology. It's very easy to get distracted. Be aware that consumer centricity is not like a buzzword. It really means you kind of put your company upside down. Data can give you the foundation to drive and guide you the way. There's also the saying that, yeah, technology is available for everybody, but leadership makes the difference. And I think the last point is, you could say, even the most important one. I think before kind of licensing a software, kind of invest rather into the people, because they will also make the right decisions for you. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we can continue with the discussion part. I think we have 20 minutes. I have a few questions prepared, and also we're going to take a few questions from the audience. I think you all quickly flew over the failure parts and move on to the learnings. So I'm really interested to know, what is your personal relationship with failures, or how do you feel about them? Anyone?
I have a very good relationship with failures because I'm older, so I made lots of mistakes in my life. Well, I think that as you grow up and as you build experience, you understand how to learn from your mistakes. So this is something, it's also like, very linked to your culture. There are countries where failure is absolutely not accepted. This is the case in my country, in France. So you're raised to not fail, to succeed. And luckily, I had the opportunity to live abroad, to live in the US, which has a completely different mindset. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes in my career, but every time I learn from it, and I actually, it's interesting because it's very painful when it happens. But then when you look at it a few years later, you're like, wow, like that was actually a very important turning point in my career, and I grew so much and learned so much that it actually accelerated my career.
Eli?
I'd have to echo what Laurence just said. When you're successful at something, you don't know you're successful at it, but when you fail at it, then you know you failed, and then you can know how to be successful. So like someone that's just lucky, then they don't even know that they're lucky. So I'd have to say I learned the most from my failures, but I don't desire to fail. So I'm not going to look out to fail. In hindsight, moving my whole family to Asia was probably a failure because what I was looking to get from it, I didn't end up getting for it. On a personal level, it was the most fun I've ever had. But like, I was looking for different things around marketing and career, and I didn't necessarily get it. So is it a failure? Like, I learned a lot from it, and I'm back doing something similar to what I was doing before, but now I appreciate it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a very emotional thing. So I would claim that it's hard to say that you like to fail. I think that's the starting point. But I think, and that's maybe also a bit reflected in that sense, that trying to kind of get this spin, that to kind of suck it up and then kind of just take the learnings out of it. I think kind of this moving on, I think that's I would say is the most important thing. That because you're pondering about, this went wrong and I should haven't done it and so on, it will not help. It will not make the situation better. And I think for me, it's of course, I have seen both worlds, kind of working with big companies before. Also, you mentioned the country culture and so on. That was also one reason which kind of was bugging me more and more, that getting out of this environment, kind of being able to, of course, get the full heat of your failures in that sense as a small company where you're more fragile, but at the same time you have more freedom to change it. So I think if you realize that something doesn't work out, then kind of it's up to you, or in our case 3 founders. So we need to get kind of somehow our heads together, but then we can change it. We don't need to go to any board or any management team which only meets 4 weeks every 4 weeks. So it also feels like that if there's pain, you can also get relief, and I think that is an important thing. But as said, of course, it's still not fun, I would say.
Yeah. I also started thinking about, you said that if you had to pick one KPI for success, it's active users. What do you guys think is the one KPI?
I would say I truly believe in customer centricity. I think that if you manage to measure it well, I would say NPS, Net Promoter Score, because usually it's correlated. Like your promoters are also like very strong users, but it captures also the advocacy part. So I would say Net Promoter Score.
So when I first started doing SEO, I was very driven by the people I worked with, by my bosses, to go after rankings. Where are we ranking on this specific term? And through a process of losing all of my rankings and then getting them back, I've been able to transition the people I work with, whether it's on a consulting project, whether it's a boss, that there are other metrics involved. Like, just because we don't rank on what they Googled for doesn't really mean that we're not getting traffic. So the ultimate metric I look at is either dollars or users, if that's what we're doing. So building whatever strategies has to go all the way through. It doesn't matter if you're on a ranking number 1 in a query that no one ever looks for, or ranking number 1 in a query that has nothing to do with your business and no one's going to convert into what your business wants. So I try to build this sort of backwards escalator for this is what we really want to happen. So we're building the content, we're getting the traffic, we're getting the rankings, but ultimately we're getting this output, and that's our metric.
Mm-hmm. We've been also, you guys have been talking about lots of metrics, data. When do you use your gut instincts?
That's a good one. It's an internal debate, especially in the SaaS world, hypergrowth world, where we use a lot of A/B testing. And sometimes you run some A/B tests, and the results are actually very counterintuitive. So I believe in my gut feeling. I think that you need to always interpret the results. Put some things in perspective. Data is a fantastic tool to reverse engineer. The acquisition process, or to understand your user usage, but it's a tool. You still need to be strategic and use your brain to make decisions.
I might object to the term pure gut. I think it's educated guesses based on lots of experiences. So it's really bringing together all the things I've done before, and I look at SEO as it's this combination of an art and a science. The science is the data part. We know there's best practices, and the art's interpreting that and how to succeed. And from my experience, there are things that I've done which I'm sure Google doesn't want to have done, but Google has a bunch of algorithms that all collide together, and then it creates these black holes where everyone can take advantage of them and make a lot of money. So like, it's not necessarily gut, it's just having done lots of things, I know that the next right thing is probably something that will work. Sometimes it fails, but it's not pure like, I just think it's right and I want to do it. It's based on not necessarily data, but other things that are indicative.
Of course, I need to say data, but no. But I think I would say also the main point, and I think that's quite often also underestimated in all the discussion about AI and machine learning and so forth, is that it always kind of has this kind of miracles happen. But I think the reality is at the end, in a lot of the projects we are doing, marketing, but also in other phase as areas is more like what I would call kind of augmented intelligence. You still kind of leverage them, and that's what we always try, kind of to leverage the know-how of, for example, a data scientist who's very fact-based, kind of trying to kind of visualize and analyze the facts, but at the same time, I think to get innovation, to kind of further develop it, you also need to have a counter force. And I think this is exactly where also you kind of actually develop a lot of the kind of the analytical capability is actually this dialogue between these two ones. So I think the point is, so it's not either or, it's more like how do you find how do you find a good process between these two ones that you can get these impulses from your guts. And especially, for example, we are working with, I mentioned different industries. That means we also work with industries where none of us has any idea what this industry is, whatever airline. Of course, we know how an airline, kind of how you fly and what goes wrong, but then the whole process behind is not something what we know. That means we are also dependent on the know-how and the knowledge of the domain. That means we will need to find this dialogue between the two, kind of the very fact-based person just saying, okay, this is what I see in the data, and this doesn't seem to work, but then we need the interpretation, and that usually kind of fuels then the next iteration, and so it's a bit, as you said, kind of start to be even an art in that sense, to kind of manage this dialogue in the most efficient way to get the best results.
Also continuing from the first topic, how long do you wait to figure out if something is succeeding or failing? I'm really interested to know about the SEO point of view, because it's such a long process to see results, in my opinion.
Good.
I'll start with the SEO. I'm also interested in hearing like your answer.
So for SEO, I'd say everything depends. It really depends on the site and the scale about what you're testing. So I know with SurveyMonkey, we have millions and millions of Google visits a day, and Google is crawling us constantly. So I measure when Google actually crawls it. So no test can start being measured until Google's even seen it. And then if it's a user test, no tests can, again, be measured until users have seen it. So a lot of my tests, I can actually get results within 24 hours since we have Google coming so frequently and search and users are coming so frequently, but longer hypothetical things take longer. So I guess it really does depend on the size and scale of the website.
Laurence?
So I would say it also depends on whether you picked the right KPI or not. Because again, if you pick a vanity KPI, you measure the wrong things, it's going to take a long time before you figure out that you're in the wrong place. So you have to pay a lot of attention to the tracking and the KPIs. And if you have real-time tracking, especially with paid marketing, you're going to be able to see pretty quickly whether a campaign is working or not working. So in my case, I'm going to look at obviously the volume of signups, but I'm going to look at the quality of signups. I'm going to try to predict if those signups are going to convert or not, because I don't know, I don't know what I don't know. It's still a 2 weeks trial, so I cannot say for sure they're going to convert, but we have some historical data, so we're able to say, okay, healthy sign up, not healthy sign up. And if I see that the channel is bringing a lot of unhealthy sign up, it's probably not going to work, shut it down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we should take some questions from the audience now. Does anyone have a question? No. I have more questions though.
Brave Estonians. Anyone really? No questions? You have a guy from SurveyMonkey all the way from San Francisco and you're not asking anything?
There is one in the back.
Okay,
Oh yeah,
here you go.
question.
I got a question
Maybe
for
stand up,
Laurence.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I gotta stand up. Give me a second. So I got a question for Laurence. In your slides, you mentioned that you made the transition of going from the silver-oriented to the mid-level oriented, but you also raised the price of silver level. Now, which one affected the profits more, whether the rising of price in the silver level or getting more users from the gold level?
So it was definitely the gold emphasis. The increase of price for silver was also a way to make gold more affordable. So it was also a marketing move. But the biggest increase we had on the value side was getting far more users on the mid-plan, the mid-market plan, so on gold.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
More questions?
Upstairs? No? Well, you can continue. I think we need to finish a bit earlier, but still.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I'm totally asking this for a friend, but if you're an early stage startup, you have limited resources, what kind of strategy would you recommend to focus on?
SEO, organic traffic, of course. Paid marketing is so expensive. I would love to ask a question to Eli about the halo effect of paid marketing on organic, because this is also something that we want to understand better. Because we see a correlation between paid and organic, but it's very hard to measure, and which means that in a way, paid is a little bit less expensive than we think, because it also has the ripple effect on organic traffic. But I don't know if you measured that at SurveyMonkey.
We measure those things pretty aggressively, and it really depends whether it's brand or non-brand. And then the other piece to it is organic can affect paid when you use retargeting. So if someone comes in organic, then you chase them all over everywhere they're going. But when it comes to brand, it's really like if you don't bid on your brand and you count on just the organic listing, then your competitor will bid on your brand. But if your competitors are not bidding on your brand, then you probably shouldn't give the free money to Google. So it really, you have to measure what's working and turn off the paid marketing and see if organic makes up for it. But everyone that always seems to turn off comes running right back to paid. So
we did that once, share this experience with the audience. We tried to go dark in one country, a pretty big country, stop paying bidding on our brand with Google. And we ended up ranked 5, so almost below the fold. There were 4 competitors with sponsor ads, and it really, really hurt our traffic. So little bit of advice, if you're in a very competitive market, don't play with that. It hurts.
I'm also interested about the paid marketing role and why this is getting so expensive. Who's winning from all of this the most?
Google and Facebook.
And not the users.
Yeah, it's. We call the brand search the Google tax. You have to spend a lot of money just protecting your brand. It's your brand, it's crazy. Eli mentioned that Facebook also modified their algorithm. So you can't before, if you were very good at social media, you could build a big community of followers and be very active, and manage to do something on Facebook. I worked in a startup 10 years ago, and I had 0 budget, and just on Facebook and Twitter, we managed to have a pretty big reach. This can't happen anymore. Now you have to pay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how much time do we have? Question from the audience.
One question. What is your experience now with traditional media and analog media? Because you must have some ads in magazines and outdoor banners as well.
So I don't have any experience with Pipedrive yet, but I will soon have experience with Pipedrive, because it's definitely something we're looking at. I think that it's a market of attention, especially our audience is SMBs. So they don't have a lot of time. Even if they do a lot of searches, they don't have so much time. and it's a very crowded market. So we're definitely looking at going back to traditional advertising. And I exchange with companies like Xero, Intuit, Wix, Monday.com. It worked pretty well for them. And when I say traditional advertising, I mean outdoor, I mean radio, I mean publishing.
So at SurveyMonkey, we don't do any traditional offline advertising, but I can tell you from some of the companies I've worked with on SEO, using traditional advertising to drive organic brand search is very valuable. So like I said earlier, you want to build this brand. So if you teach Google that you're a brand, so people do this in ads where they'll do a radio ad and say, search us online. So they're searching for the brand, and you're teaching Google, let's say you're a pizza shop. So you're teaching Google that your brand equals pizza because people are searching your brand plus pizza. So that actually helps, and you can find cheaper places to do it. So you're not looking for necessarily users to convert, you're looking for users to search, and then other users will convert.
Yeah, I think for us, of course, we ourselves don't do any kind of campaigns there, but I think more like building on that is trying to ensure that you also kind of be able to measure whatever you do there. So kind of is exactly building that link, that's the ultimate thing, and that is of course also one of these kind of changes within the culture of a marketing organization, that you really need to think of, okay, how can I include that into my dialogue? I try to maximize the reach to my customers, independent, offline or online, but let's make sure that it kind of loops back into my world, so I can really also optimize it, because I think that is I think still a big business for media agencies, but I think it will. I think this is something which you will need to exercise within your own organization in the future. Oh, now we get a lot of questions.
Yeah. There's another question there?
Questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
We have time.
Hi. I have a question about SEO and broad keywords. HubSpot is a front runner of broad keywords, like, for example, like how to make GIF and this kind of broad keywords. Is it working really for SEO these days? For example, like SurveyMonkey.
Sorry, what kind of keywords?
No, let's say like how to make a GIF broad, really broad.
Oh, broad
before,
keywords, yeah.
Broad keywords. You before a little bit showed that go a little bit more broad.
So yeah, so what I do at SurveyMonkey is, if you think about like what SurveyMonkey does, like we're a software product for people to create surveys. So if you're looking to create a survey, you may stumble across SurveyMonkey. But what you might not realize is if you have an issue that a survey can help you with, that's a broad keyword. So an example could be your employees are leaving. You have high employee turnover, so that's your issue. So if you're searching for high employee turnover as a problem, you can now have content that says your employees are leaving because they don't like you. And if you measure that with a survey by asking them if they like working for you, then that could help you solve that employee turnover. So that's a broad keyword. So you have to pick the broad keywords that make sense for your product and that could end up converting through your funnel.
Another question?
4 seconds.
2 seconds.
I just wanted to quickly ask from Dirk. You mentioned that what you said about omnichannel and kind of starting the omnichannel growth from the company inside, meaning changing the kind of business culture. And how would you go, let's say you have like, I don't know, 2 days of making the business units kind of coherently work together and change their mindset towards omnichannel thinking? How would you approach that?
I think the first thing is kind of let them explore their customer itself. So go to your customer care, go really kind of forcing your management, for example, to be kind of a user, eat your own dog food. I think that's the most impactful thing. So they really realize that where are the discontinuation points. Give them 30 minutes in your customer service. I think they will realize that maybe the experience is not the one which it should be.
Okay, thank you. I think we're out of time now.